I think we've all had the pressure to create turnaround situations and make big moves, and I say big moves, big adjustments, and sometimes we have to. My philosophy and strategies have always been to make incremental changes over time, given the fact that we're usually in the art museum world overseeing institutions that have histories over hundreds of years, thousands of stakeholders. So I'm a big believer in incremental moves. And I also think incremental moves allow it to be more sustainable. So for example, every year again, I talk to my team about how change is going to happen. And it happens on an everyday. It can happen with an email, it can happen with a conversation, it can happen with a slight adjustment of the budget. But over time, when we look back, we can see big moves happening as a result of all the increments adding up. So again, I resist making dramatic change suddenly. Again, my dramatic change will happen over time, and it's the result or the accumulation of many small changes. So I arrived in 2006, and the museum had to really evaluate its current business model, its relationship with the community, among other things. And part of that was the result of large capital projects, expansion projects, as well as big major international exhibitions, which helped the museum solidify at least its role in the community as well as the international environment. But it challenged it resource-wise. It really stretched the institution beyond its capability. The way I approached it and started to build with the team was to think about my core tenets for an art museum, which have always revolved around really understanding the art component of your mission. So focus on the art. The second thing I always think about, and the second tenet, has always been about accessibility, economic as well as intellectual accessibility. And then the third is fiscal responsibility. As a nonprofit, it's very important for me and for my institution to be responsible stewards of the resources we have. So over the next 3 to 4 years, on what I call this transition and changing the business model, again, to make it more sustainable, because it wasn't sustainable, we focused first and foremost on the art. What is our core asset? One project in particular that really helped solidify or signal this change was we did an exhibition of photography looking at the 100 years of photography, starting with Carlton Watkins, who came up to Portland and Oregon in the Gorge and created a moment of photography here that has continued over the last almost 100 years. Part of this was that we had some of the works in our collections. It was about our state and our region. We also had a curator who devoted a lifelong research in this area. So all three of those things came together and was treated as a major special exhibition and publication. It also galvanized the community in very strong and interesting ways, signaling a new approach to how the museum was going to present exhibitions and its art and use its resources. With regard to the accessibility side of things, the first thing we did was endow admission for children. So children 17 and under would always be free at this institution. We looked at the number of dollars we were receiving in children's admissions or 17 under admissions, and we created an endowment for $1 million, which would generate $50,000 a year. That's what we were getting annually. And so we've eliminated admissions for children. We also did it with school tour fees. There was a small fee for children. For school children, $2, and then we eliminated that with $1 million endowment. And then we also created $1 million endowment for 4 free family days a year. What that did was signal the accessibility of the institution as a place more like a library for the community to use and own by the community. With regard to the staff, I mean, I always feel as a leader it's critical that ultimately my job is to provide resources for the staff to help them perform their jobs. So I've created a culture of allowing staff to really perform in their areas of expertise and giving them the leeway. As a result, people I think feel fairly free to experiment and try new things. But we've also spent time in investing in the staff. We did some of the basics, such as going back and doing a salary survey, over the last 5 years, we've invested almost $250,000 in equity adjustments for staff positions. Even during the recession, every year we would dedicate resources for equity adjustments to make sure that everyone was at the median or 75th percentile for their average. And that has been a very important component of what we've been trying to do in investing in one of those assets that we have. One of the greatest assets is our staff. That's created a huge impact, adjusting the culture. People come to work, embracing the opportunity to work at an art museum, but also knowing it's a place where people believe in them, which has a powerful impact on I think, the culture here. Ultimately, trust is critical, that you need your various department leaders to trust each other, to bounce ideas off of each other, but to ultimately, again, give each other the opportunity to experiment and try new things with them coming on board. We've had good success in this. It's been challenging at times. I've had to intervene and help people come together and enforce communication, which is something I don't like to do, but ultimately we've had very good success in this area. I'd say more success than failures, but the failures have helped us learn. And then the third thing is we spent a lot of time evaluating the budget, reallocating resources, shrinking the budget. Obviously due to the debt, that was part of the issue, but again, the unsustainable business model was also something that was in the back of my mind. We shrunk the number of FTEs, we shrunk the exhibition budget. We also did reallocate some money towards education, so that expanded. We were also very transparent. We immediately put our financial statements on the internet. We communicated clearly with the board what our financial position was. I also communicated clearly with the staff what our financial position was, to define where we were, to make sure that they understood the parameters in which we were operating. So those three elements, the art, the accessibility, and ultimately the fiscal responsibility, helped stabilize the institution, helped us rethink the institution and establish a new business model.